Welcome to Ham News. I'm your host, Tim Doan. Today on Ham News, we'll show you how some local amateur radio operators fared on field day. We'll report on some special event stations at the Evergreen Fly-In, the demonstration of packet radio, and show off amateur ham shack. Each year in the last weekend of June, amateur radio operators from around North America brush up on their emergency communication skills by participating in field day. We have Mark Gaunt with us today to explain what field day is and how the Clark County Amateur Radio Club participated in the event. Welcome, Mark.
Morning.
What is field day?
Well, it's a weekend during which as many hams as possible will get out either gear they have never had out before or the existing gear in their home and relocate to some remote area, possibly set up their equipment, antennas, the stations, generators on a temporary basis to prove that they can do so for an emergency or a simulated emergency situation. It sounds like a lot of work, it is, but there's also a lot of fun involved.
How long does field day last?
Well, it'll start on 11 o'clock on Saturday morning and then runs until 11 o'clock Sunday. Generally the setup time is Friday afternoon for most people. Some folks will stay out overnight at the location. They'll be ready to go by Saturday morning. So activities generally starting Friday afternoon to Sunday afternoon when it winds down.
How important is field day to the amateur radio operators?
Well, I think it's very important. It proves that we can operate under emergency conditions, that whether we have portable gear or gear that's in our station, we can relocate, we can get on the air in the event that we have to for some unforeseen reason.
They made branch, it's just saying 2 or 3.
Can you climb back up there, Michael? Oh, I must be like that. Getting young again.
Young foolish. Can't keep calling in stuff to bring.
Maybe we get up there and toward the middle of it.
Glad you're up here, Mike. If you didn't do that, one of us would have to. Hey, he's you get the little sleeve? I hope that should be enough weight to get through there. Steer as high as you can get.
Michael wants to find the main part of the tree.
I was thinking the same thing.
Go up the top. Oh, that's just the middle of it.
Heavyweight like you.
Maybe stick it right up there in the middle.
Mark, want some still pictures taken of all this? I got a camera with me.
Oh, that's a good idea. I've got one too, but
Since you guys are listening to the historian.
all right, yeah.
Fun time.
Yeah, hell, we're not going to operate. We're going to sit up and we'll let the plane go by. We're going to take it down and go on. Yeah, it is. You're going to do what? Because nobody's talking. Yeah, just see if he gets the height. Yeah. Let's see. And the 80 meter will go up same place. This end will go out that way as far as we can. It's dangerous.
It's falling down.
Oh, the ball.
I know. What's his name there? Giovanni Brush that did that. Who's the guy that did that? William Shell.
Fall, whatever you do.
Newton.
Oh.
Fig. Well, I'll start bringing out some of the radios.
Well, I do have my CPR card and medically trained, so we give him first aid.
Now I can see if you can catch him right there. He can fish it through that centerpiece there.
Well, if you guys, I can get right here.
Doesn't really matter. You're not going to be able to pull it real hard.
What's that? What is that? Is this piece pipe or?
Yeah, just
Steel
use
pipe?
pipe. Ties your fence post. Just twanged into the barbed wire. Tie it around it. Oh, shit. call it hand it just a rope. Put tied it around his neck or something. Alright.
Anyway, I'm pulling out the lines up. Bring it down. Keep pulling, Mike.
What about the white one?
What?
Oh, what about the white one? White one's already still connected, so go down with it.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, you guys have to just pull on the bottom of the rope right on the ground.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, I'll talk to Larry and then Capstone. I'll be up there this afternoon with Lonnie and Stefan or White Peak. Once he clears from another station.
I'd probably call it
go
a
out
tree
and
back
give
there.
other operators some help. Talk to Larry. WB7 Energy is sitting on bar by.
Let's see here, well, one antenna's up.
Juliet Kilo, Victor Echo 7, Foxtrot Juliet Kilo, QSL. VG7, Fox Juliet Kilo. I hope I got it right that time. Okay, VG6 HRB returning here about at 5 and 7 here. Go ahead. Thank you very much. Got it. Okay, 7.
Oh, go ahead. This morning I'm in Ridgefield, Washington, at the site of an amateur radio station participating in Field Day. Field Day is an annual national event in which amateur radio operators work under adverse conditions, such as heat, cold, rain, hail, in some cases even snow. It is a contest to see how many amateur radio stations they can contact in 24 hours. This also tests the abilities of amateur radio operators to work in these conditions and increases their knowledge of setting up and operating stations in conditions that could be called anything but ideal. In some areas of the country, amateur radio stations will be set up in woods, forests, on mountains, in valleys, and in other locations that would not normally be used. Stations will be operating on AC, generators, batteries, and other sources of power. The station behind me is operating on generators. I'm Tim Doan reporting for Ham News.
Basically, this is my first field day. I've watched some tapes on them and read a lot about them, but this is my first one. They've done some special event stations from my home, and I've done some special event stations out in the field. The fly-in, the annual fly-in. It's pretty much the same, although here we're generating our own power instead of being plugged in. But, here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all together. We got a couple dipoles, which is basically a couple wires strung in the air. We've got a vertical antenna in the back, which is vertical to the ground, although I can't say it's too vertical to the sky. Yeah. And we have a couple 2-meter antennas up for the local contacts here, and we didn't bring enough chairs. You were right. But we're out here to basically have some fun, and we've done the hard work now, putting the antennas up. Now we'll sit down and one of us will operate all the time, I suspect, who's ever got the will to do it.
How long is field day run?
Well, we're going to run it today and till tomorrow afternoon, I suppose, 2 days. About 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, Sunday. Yeah, you can probably hear some in the background. We're not the only ones. There's a whole bunch of us out doing the same thing and having a good time.
7 Mike Tango Yankee, you're 1 Alpha, Eastern Washington.
What's 1 Alpha mean?
You know what? Okay, have you pulled this up and dropped it down where it's clear? I think it is moving it over.
Getting out.
Frequency, if you're going with your 7 would you check your RSU on the back of a frequency battery like you have a few big contact with it, but you are on frequency.
That's right. Yeah, pull it up.
W7MTY, this is W7AIA. Do you copy now? W7MTY, this is W7AIA. How do you copy? I don't think we're getting out, are we?
Yeah, Ty Bowling. Right, yeah.
AI9 Hughes, this is KB7TSE. KB7TSE, AI9 Hughes. Copy, okay?
Might have to speak up a bit.
AA7IU, this is W7AIA.
I hear, who is this calling for AA7IU? Pretty light.
W7AIA, 3A West Washington. Copy?
Yeah, say it again, please. I got some splatter coming in there with you.
Okay, this is W7 Alpha Item Alpha 3A West Washington. Copy?
Whiskey 7 Oscar Mike Alpha, is that it?
Whiskey 7 Alpha India Alpha.
Whiskey 6 Oscar Mike Alpha?
Whiskey 7 Alpha India Alpha.
Awfully light. Come in here again. Whiskey 6, I got that much of it.
This is Whiskey 7 Alpha India Alpha.
Okay, Delta, and I've got an Alpha in there. What is it? Whiskey 6 Delta, what Alpha?
I wonder if he's talking to us.
I don't know.
He's got a 6. He's got a 6 station.
Whiskey 6, I got a Delta and an Alpha there,
That's not
AA7IU.
us. This is the guy.
He's missing.
You guys have found the logs? You're using logs.
Well,
we got
This
these
is
things.
Alpha,
That's all we
Alpha
got.
7,
we ever make it
uniform. India Alpha, come again, please. You recovered?
Whiskey 7, Alpha India Alpha.
Whiskey 7, Alpha, India Alpha. Please copy. Germany Radio, 2 Alpha, San Joaquin Valley, over.
Roger, sir. W7AIA, we are 3 Alpha, Western Washington.
Thank you very much, sir. Good luck in the conflict. W6GR, 60 field day, 60 field day. Kilo 160 in Portugal. Norway, Portugal, please copy. Whiskey 6, Germany Radio, 2 Alpha, San Joaquin Valley, over.
We should have saw we were.
Mark, are there any other benefits to field day besides just being able to set up on a site under adverse conditions?
Well, there are 2 that come to mind right away. One is the contesting effect of it. There are points accumulated for the most number of contacts, so that of course drives a crew to get on the air as much as they can, to transmit as much as they can. There are certificates and awards given for the most number of contacts made in different categories, when it's all over. Also, public awareness is a very big benefit, I think. A number of clubs will make it a point to set up in an area that is open to the public. There are points given for that. Some clubs don't. They'll go out into a remote area, such as we did last year. That is really difficult for the public to get to. But for the most part, if a group can set up where the public can get to them, it gives the public a chance to see what we're doing, to see what goes on, and of course the PR is always great there.
How do you determine what call sign is used?
That's generally an agreement of the people who are there. They'll decide if there's no club call involved, for example, they'll decide whose call to use, and that's just an agreement. The Clark County Club has its own call, W7AIA, and everything we do as a club, we'll use the club call, so that decision is made for us easily.
Thank you again, Mark, for visiting with us and giving us some of the information. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Tim. Thank you.
One mode of amateur radio communication is packet radio. Packet radio is a digital form of communications using a terminal node controller, or TNC, an amateur transceiver, and a computer terminal. Packet radio sends information via bursts or packets of sound. This is what a packet of information sounds like. This sound is encoded and decoded by the TNC, then displayed on the terminal or sent out through the radio. To help demonstrate how to use packet radio, we've invited Tony, N7XNE, to join us. Welcome, Tony.
Thanks, Clint. Well, as you said, we've got a terminal node controller, which is actually itself a little computer with a modem inside of it. We've got our radio and some type of terminal to display so we can see what's going on. This is just happens to be a portable, HP Portable Plus personal computer with a screen on it, and we can connect via the radio to each other or to any other amateur stations that happen to be on the same frequency. And I think Clint is going to connect to me right now.
We'll go ahead and make a connection here so we can demonstrate how it actually functions. At least I think it will. Just
Bet you I can beat him to it.
Why is it not working?
We're connected. Now I can type something. And it should show up on Clint's screen over there.
Now via this mode of communication, we are transmitting person to person. We can just type back and forth as we were doing here. Or we can actually send information in form of files directly, such as I'm doing now. As you can see, this runs much faster as it is completed.
The neat thing about digital communications is that the computers perform all the checking back and forth and making sure that the message or traffic is passed accurately, and there's no human interaction as far as asking to clarify a word that you couldn't understand because the guy was talking. We don't have to worry about background noise from a microphone because these cables feed it directly in there, and it's a nice clean way of communicating. The TNCs handle all the error correction, so you get 100% copy on everything that you send unless the thing happens to time out, meaning loses communication, or there's some other interference like a lot of other packet stations on the same frequency.
Good to mention, that is one other nice feature of packet radio is unlike voice communications, you can have multiple communications happening at the same frequency at the same time because of the way it controls the sharing of the frequency is time shared.
The other thing too is a digital mode of communication. You're not just limited to text messages. We can actually send programs back and forth. We could send pictures back and forth. We can send any type of information that a computer normally deals with. We can transfer those things back and forth to people. So if you wanted a site map of a downed aircraft for emergency purposes or anything like that, it'll handle it.
Yes, and not just person to person as we are doing, but it can be done via what is called digipeating, which is where one of these TNCs and a radio actually rebroadcasts multiple times the same information so that it can be extended over long distances.
Right. Well, the digipeating as it would be for a single user, you know, you at home would set up your TNC and just leave it hooked to the radio. You don't even have to have the computer hooked up to make a digipeater. Store and forward bulletin board systems, or BBSs, have the capability to transfer messages across the country or around the world. There's gateways which will link either through like a fiber optic or some type of leased telephone line to various sections of the country. There's also satellite gateways where it'll actually, you'll send a message and route it through the gateway. It'll go up to the satellite. Next time the satellite comes over a station that's listening for a message that is addressed to it, the satellite will download it. So you can actually communicate worldwide with this.
Correct. Also, another function is direct communication, person to person, via nodes. A node will take and remake the connection, and you can do this over many steps. As I've personally connected as many as 6 or 7 nodes together to talk to a person long distance.
Right. The nodes are the way that the bulletin board systems transfer messages. There's a whole network of these things scattered completely across the country, you know.
And around the world.
Right.
It's all done around the world.
From here in Vancouver, it takes about 4 hops to directly get to Seattle. And your turnaround on a message would be about 2 to 3 minutes, depending on what the load is on the network, how many other people are using that pathway at that time, or whether there's a bunch of mail being passed, or, you know, inclement weather, that kind of stuff.
Correct. Mail can also is transferred via these nodes from one bulletin board in many hops around the country, and also via other modes of communication such as Clover, which is another digital form of communications over HF, or long distance airwaves,
right,
which can go completely around the world on one hop.
Right. This TNC that I have has the capability to do many digital modes. It'll actually do high HF, or high frequency, 300 bits per second packet, VHF 1200 bits per second packet, weather fax it'll do AMTOR, RTTY, and I'm sure I'm leaving some out, but it does lots and lots of different modes. So, and it's got 2 radio ports on it, so I can hook it up at home and have my HF radio on one port and the VHF, or handheld type. Normally I'd use it with an outside antenna to get greater range, but have them both hooked up at once.
Oh, thank you, Tony. I think we've pretty much covered all that Packet has to offer.
Well, there's lots of things that Packet can offer. You know, the messages are not just about radio-related topics. Train spotters, satellite watchers, astrology, astronomy. There's all kinds of different messages being passed around on the bulletin boards that you can get into.
Yes, for a further example, sale information.
That's right.
You can
modifications to radios, computers, you name it. You can think of a topic that you're interested in, it's probably being passed around on the bulletin board system.
All right. Well, thank you much, and
disconnect.
We'll do our disconnect.
The Clark County Amateur Radio Club set up a special event station at the 46th Annual Evergreen Air Show, held last August here in Vancouver.
My
My name is Brent. I'm here at the Evergreen 35th Annual Fly-In here in Vancouver, Washington. Beautiful day today. This is something where the Clark County Amateur Radio Club does every year, and we're really excited because we've got this great HF station here. We've got a couple HF. Got Paul here working 15 meters, and got Dick behind me working 80 meters. This is really going to be a lot of fun today, I can tell. Off to my immediate left, I got Clint down here working some packet radio, digital communications, and we've got this gigantic tower out here to my behind here. And so we're going to work a wide variety of HF today. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think the main reason why the Amateur Radio Club comes out here every year is because, number one, they like us, and number two, we just want to give the public a good idea what amateur radio is all about. So I think whoever comes in through here is really going to have a good idea of what ham radio is all about. And we've got brochures laying here on the table, and we've got newspaper clippings from the past of other times we've been here through the summertime. So it's really going to be great. So you come in, you pay your dollar amount, and just walk around here. So I think it's really going to be a lot of fun. I've been standing here talking here with Gordon about why the Amateur Radio Club's been allowed to come here. Gordon, I'm just curious, why has the Amateur Radio Club been allowed to come here every year?
Well, we like anybody to come that's interested in antique airplanes or has to do with airplanes at all, and we just enjoy having somebody come that appreciates our show and would like to help us put on the show. It's great to have you.
Well, great. So what is your main responsibility here at the airport today?
Today I'm in charge of the breakfast for 2 days, and I've been a little bit of everything around here, presidents and past presidents and boards and all kinds of things, all activities. Anything has to do with the Antique Airplane Club.
Wow. Do you fly yourself?
I've flown for about 30 years, I suppose, and lately I've just sold my airplane, so I'm not really active flying anymore, but I could anytime I want to.
Wow. So is this something that happens every year, or who sponsors this mainly?
Yes, this is sponsored by the Northwest Antique Airplane Club, and it's been put on every year for 35 years in a row. This is the 35th year.
Wow. Well, that's great. Well, it looks like a great turnout today. How many people do you expect we're going to have out here today?
I would imagine probably in excess of 5,000 today. We had a big crowd last night, and more airplanes came in last night than we've ever had since I've been around. Wow. And it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
How old are some of these planes?
Oh, the oldest one here is a 1908 Jenny, one of the oldest in the world.
Wow, that was before I was born.
And it'll be flying today and tomorrow.
Oh wow, that's great. And so a lot of these are any of these planes going to be taking off today, or they're just mainly there for static display?
Most of them will stay all day today, and some of them have to leave early tomorrow morning so they can get back home. Some of them from California, Texas, all over the Northwest.
Wow.
But they usually stay close till noon tomorrow.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Gordon, and thanks for sharing with us and telling us a little bit about the Evergreen Fly-In here, the 35th annual. So this is something that they enjoy doing every year, and thank you for allowing the Amateur Radio Club to provide communications today.
Glad to have you here.
This is I'm Brent, N7QFR, with Gordon for Ham News. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan. I've been asked to talk to you today about amateur radio, or ham radio, whatever you want to call it. I became interested in ham radio about 10 years ago. Actually, it was actually earlier than that. When I was a small child, my father and grandfather bought me a Radio Shack, at that time probably crystal-controlled kit, do-it-yourself. We built it one night and we hooked the antenna up to the curtain rod in my bedroom when I was about 10, and boy, I had the bug. Going through school and working and everything, I always figured someday that I'd like to do that, and I think at the time I got interested in CB radio. From that point, I decided this was fun, but I seen a lot of these big towers and everything up all over the country, and I wanted to know what those guys were doing. I checked into it and went to the Clark County Amateur Radio Club's novice class and received my first license in 1990 as a novice. And from that point on, I've worked with my technician, I've worked into a general, and I'm working on my advanced now. One thing that I would like to show you today is some of the things that I've done with the amateur radio hobby so far. If you look over here to the far right, you'll see a computer screen. One thing that fascinated me about ham radio is satellites, Sputniks, whatever. These are amateur satellites that are in the sky. They're low Earth orbiters. And what you're seeing on the screen is a piece of software that uses to track the satellites. We have two antennas that I use, and they go up and down, and they go horizon to horizon, or vertical and horizontal, I guess is what I want to say. The program here is called AMSAT. What it does is track the satellite at the point in time in its elliptical orbit to the Earth, and it allows you to track it and know when to point your antennas in a specific direction to use it so that you can begin talking all over the world on it. It also shows you the path of the world and the continents where the satellite will reach at the time. It's a really nice piece of software, and it's run on a IBM compatible computer. Over here you have an antenna tuner, which is capable of handling 3 kilowatts of power to tune throughout the high frequency radio here. I have my rotors, and this is the rotor here that I use to control the antennas to go up and down and then left to right around the horizon. And then I have another rotor here which is used to control another separate beam on my tower. And then of course amplifiers here that are used for 2 meters and 70 centimeters or 440. This is a small television that I use here for amateur television. I'll show you an example here. When you transmit on this, it will bring up what they call color bars. There they are. There's a repeater over on the KGON tower at about the 300-foot level that allows the signal to be captured and then repeated out on 1.2 gigahertz. You transmit on 440 and it's received on 1.2 gigahertz. Down below it here we have what we call a packet screen or a dumb terminal. This is used for me to track the DX and different things that are going on in the local area. DX, of course, is the skip or propagation around the world. And the way it works is the people who are monitoring this talk to a station, give the frequency that they're talking on, and then enter it into the computer into a node, and give the name, the call, the frequency, and time, and it shows up on these computers or dumb terminals throughout the country to know what's going on. Right here we have a 2-meter all-mode radio. This works sideband, FM, AM, CW, anything that you want to do. I use this for satellite work and to talk sideband throughout the western United States. Down below it is a 440 or 70 centimeter all-mode, which I use for satellite work also. This is kind of a neat little radio because it's got a little Japanese lady in it, if you can listen.
4, 3, 1, 9, 2, 5.
I don't know if you're able to hear that or not, but I purchased this radio from a blind gentleman. The nice thing about ham radio is you don't have to be able to see to talk or learn code. This gentleman couldn't see, but the manufacturer of this radio is Kenwood, and they put a little microprocessor voice in it so that he knows at all point in time where he is on the frequency and different band positions. Here's the amateur television transceiver. It's a transmitter, and it's done in vestigial sideband, what they call, which is a real clean sideband form. And above it I have a Mirage amplifier, which is a 50-watt amplifier, which takes a signal 1 watt here and produces 50 watts out the antenna so that I can hit the different repeater sites. Right here I have my HF, high frequency radio. This happens to be a Kenwood. It's a newer transceiver. It does 1.8 megahertz through 30 megahertz and all of the work bands in between. Above it here I have what we call an antenna switch, which allows me to run one coax up my tower and to switch between 5 different antennas. It's all electronic. You turn the knob here, 20 meters, and then another beam, 40 meters, 80 meters, and 160 meters. These are all different antennas, and it just works off a flip of a switch. I have what we call an ATV down converter right here, which is the downlink of the transmitted television signal from the tower. It's received in 1.2 gigahertz. Of course, a lot of those people who are avid CW or nuts or Morse code, here's the paddle to do that, the power supply, and a speaker. And of course, every ham station, along with the computer, needs a printer so he can print out what he wants to talk about. Up here, you'll see a television. Well, you probably won't see, but I have a television up here that allows me to transmit my picture to the other stations that I'm talking to. And that's just a typical video camcorder, video camera, whatever. I think I picked that one up at a flea market for $100. There's not a lot of expense in this. Some other things that make this fun are on the walls I have what we call special event stations. These are stations across the country and the world that do special things. There's a couple I'd like to point out to you that in particular, if you look over here on the wall, is the inauguration special event from President Clinton on the left, and then on the right is a presidential QSL party from his election. Below that I have some more equipment. I have what we call amplifiers for HF. This happens to be a Henry 2K3, which runs a pair of 3500Z tubes in it, which produce 1.5 kilowatts. Next to that is what I have, a homebrew called Bertha. It's running a 4-1000 tube, which is very capable of producing 1.5 kilowatts. And then above it I have a little Yaesu 2100B, which runs right around 600 to 800 watts, and I'd use that to drive Bertha to make it percolate on the HF bands. Some of the neat things of ham radio that have touched my life are meeting all the people throughout the world and different countries, and you learn a lot about geography when you speak and talk to different people throughout the world.
Here's what's happening. Clark County Amateur Radio Club meeting for December will be on the 2nd at the Bagley Center in Vancouver from 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. All are invited to attend. For information on the Clark County Amateur Radio Club, please call 206-896-8909.